Welcome to Living Fully. Each episode is a chance to talk about mental health in a way that's simple, honest, and helpful. We'll share stories, tips, and tools to help you feel supported and feel your best. I'm your host, Katherine Hertig. The holidays can be wonderful, but they can also be a lot. Between family gatherings, gift expectations, packed calendars, and stretched budgets, it's easy to feel pulled in every direction. In this episode, I'm joined by counsellor Denis Shushkin from Calgary Counselling Centre to talk about what healthy boundaries look like this time of year, how to protect your time, energy, and money without feeling guilty. So today we are talking about family expectations, protecting your time and energy, and sticking to a budget, navigating traditions with a partner, all those kinds of things. And I'm joined by counsellor Denis Shushkin from Calgary Counselling Centre. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Let's start off by talking about boundaries with families during this time.
Sure.
I mean, holidays, it can bring people together for sure, but it can also bring up tension. You know, you're not going to always get along 100% with everybody in your family. And so, setting boundaries with these people, why does that feel especially hard to do that around this time of year?
I think you're absolutely right. You will not get along with everyone 100% of the time. That's just a given. And I think holidays come wrapped in a little bit of nostalgia, family pressure, tradition, and all of a sudden, you're not saying no to a trip or a dinner. You're saying no to, a grandma's pie. Or something even more sacred and special for your family.
Yeah.
Plus, if you add a bit of that cultural expectation that holidays need to be magical and it's full of togetherness.
Yeah, there's so many expectations around this time.
Sure. And if you put all of those expectations together, it's almost like you're breaking the rules of Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
Yeah. And what are some common situations where people might need to set boundaries with family during holidays?
Yeah, there are a lot of them. Sometimes it's boundaries around time together, dinners. Sometimes it's about saying no to a trip that feels exhausting or too expensive. Sometimes it's about protecting your decisions around kids' routines like food, gifts, bedtimes. Sometimes it's about saying no to conversations that usually end up in a big, nasty conflict like politics. Yeah,
why do we find it so tough to say no to family, whether that's traditions or, like we said, expectations? Yeah, why is that so tough even when that's not really working for us anymore?
Well, I think traditions are connected with love and togetherness and belonging, and that's where it comes with some guilt. It's almost like you're feeling guilty for saying no. But it's important to remember that you're feeling guilty not because you're doing something wrong, but because you care about others.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good way to think of it.
Right. Yeah. It's like around holidays especially, the amount of guilt you feel usually is connected to how much you care about others.
Yeah.
And the other thing to remember is guilt fades away. But what usually lingers is the resentment. And boundaries always come with a cost. And it's up to us to decide, do you want to pay a little bit of cost with that guilt?
Right.
Or do you want to pay the bigger cost of resentment that will fill the whole holiday, or maybe even spills over into the new year, into the other relationships? So it's a balance.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into that a bit. If we've decided, okay, I want to set this boundary and this holiday event, I don't want to have a conversation with this person about their political beliefs, or, I have to set a boundary here because I can't go to this event. My friend wants me to because it's going to cost too much money or something. How do you suggest kind of setting those boundaries in the most respectful way?
Well, and I think it's helpful to break it down into something more tangible and manageable. When people think about boundaries, people usually think about how to say something, how to say no, and all other things. But I think it's important to talk about other two steps. So first, before you say anything, before you manage that conversation with anyone else, you have to articulate it to yourself, be very clear on what's important to you. What do you want to say or do? Because boundaries are never about other people. Boundaries are always only about what you're willing or not willing to do or say, and be able to accept it as hey, that's me, that's important to me. And that's an important step before you even go to someone and say something. Are you clear? Are you okay to be in your own skin with that view?
Kind of knowing why this boundary is important to you.
Why it's important to you, what is the boundary, where is that line? what's okay, what's not okay, because that's the first step, and that's really important. So if you want to set those boundaries, so I think it's really important to be really clear and be able to accept that's okay.
Yeah,
That's can come with pressure and guilt and all other things, but it's okay. It's the reflection of who I am, what's important to me right now, what's important to my family, and that's first important piece of like setting that boundary. And I think another overlooked part of setting good boundaries is your ability to actually empathize with the other person who you talk to.
yeah.
And what I mean by that is like your ability to see the world through their lens and see why they want to cross the boundary, why they want to push for something. It doesn't mean that you need to agree with them, as long as you can articulate and see what's important for them.
Yeah, and understand where they're coming from as well. Yeah. I'm just thinking of like my own boundaries that I try to set. And I think that's definitely something that I overlook and should spend more time doing.
And I think it's never guaranteed that people will respect. But when I think even about those conversations about politics and everything, so being able to start that conversation like, hey, I see you, I know where you're coming from, I know what's important to you. And then add that boundary, and at the same time, like this season, I want to stay away from those conversations. That makes it for a better start.
And if there's a scenario where you attempt to set these boundaries and this other person you're setting it with, they don't understand or respect that boundary, what's a good way to respond?
Yeah, families especially can be messy.
Yeah.
And it's not so straightforward. I think separating your ability to set good boundaries from the outcomes is really important, because you can set a really good boundary and the person will not understand, will not respect it. And that it becomes like, it's the second round of setting those boundaries. So if you communicated them, and they responded the way they responded, so what does it mean to you? So what do you want to do next?
Yeah.
If they said no to and they keep talking about politics, well, that's an opportunity for you to set that, kind of go back and revisit. So it's still important to me. I want to stay clear of those conversations. They want to talk. So does it mean that you want to limit the amount of time you want to spend there? Does it mean that you want to sit at a different side of the table and create a bit of distance while being still, again, kind and respectful and clear about what's going on? So that's just when people don't respond the way you want to, again, your boundaries are yours. And it's an opportunity for you to go back and revisit, review. So what does it mean for me and what do I want to do next?
Yeah, that's the tough part, because we can only control ourselves and our own actions. And yeah, I mean, you want to think like, well, this person is family. They are going to, respect and care about me and follow through on this boundary, but we can't control that, and that doesn't always happen.
Right. Well, and we need to be mindful of the stories that we're telling ourselves. Like, are they doing what they're doing because they don't care, because they don't respect, because they are very passionate about something? Because there can be a lot of ways how we can interpret what people do.
For sure.
So being mindful as well of how we interpret the people's actions.
Yeah, not just making our assumptions, but what else could be true in that scenario. Yeah. So another big part of the holidays for a lot of people is the financial stress that comes with that. So that could be the pressure to attend lots of parties. It could be gift giving. There's just a lot that comes up around that time. And especially now, I mean, finances are even more so on people's minds. So how can people set financial boundaries without feeling like they're maybe disappointing other people?
Well, I think it comes in that package of making Christmas magical and full of togetherness.
Yeah, we expect it to be that way.
Right. And usually we see money as a means to get there. We buy a big enough gift, if we spend enough time, if we go to enough parties that are magical and beautiful, if we have enough, I don't know, what's the ugly sweaters to enjoy this season. But I think probably starting before the holiday season starts, being mindful and and decide what's okay for you this season, because it will change. What works for you this year might not work for you next year. And you might need to cut down more, or we will be able to spend more. So being clear and respectful and things to people ahead of time. Hey, that's what's going on. That's what I'm planning to do. So people can adjust those expectations. And if I'm honest, I'm willing to bet when people start articulating those things, hey, it's financial stressors are real, I think 99.9% of people will just have sigh of relief, because they're dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And everyone is competing in this whose Christmas is more magical. Yeah. And when people are clear and kind with one another and respectful and say things kind of like, I think, people understand more than we are willing to give them credit for.
And like you said, it comes back to expectations again. So if you, like you said, plan beforehand and set your own expectations, like this is what my limits are. This is how much I can spend. This is how many, events I can go to. Right. That kind of helps.
Yeah. Well, and overall, like, I think money, sex, and death are 3 topics that are hardest to talk about. So it's all okay to expect that those conversations can be awkward. You might feel like, I don't know how to say it. And because talking about money it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's full of tension, and because it's not just about money. It's the meaning we assign to the money, and
of course,
what comes with comes with a big novel of like what it means to us.
So, I mean, everyone's holiday is going to be different. The, amount of people they need to buy for, or, the expectations around that. So what are some ways to say no to, I don't know, things like gift exchanges or expensive outings or buying a lot of stuff without awkwardness or that guilt you were talking about?
Well, one thing that people can do is to add some playfulness into this conversation, and maybe like decide on who are those important people, and maybe together come up with a list or like give them ideas for how they can spend less money, but at the same time really enjoy time with each other.
Yeah.
So it can be like a little jar with a lot of post-it notes. Like one post-it note can say handmade gifts only, or the funniest gift under $10, or experiences of the gifts, and make that jar together. And then at the end of the evening, pick something.
I love that.
And it will be just like, again, like, because a lot of that guilt and pressure comes from like people wanting to spend time together, connect, celebrate each other, make it special. So if you see that as a goal, and then it opens up a lot of opportunities. Because money just like is one of the options how people get there. But if you can create more ways to get to the same place, people enjoy it, and it can be fun.
Or
can
ways
be an
to
activity.
Have that connection.
For sure. Yeah, like getting the family together before the holiday starts, and let's do something different today. We want this, and that comes from the kind of like, if you can empathize, if you can understand where the people are coming from, if you know that the party means togetherness or the gifts means valuing each other, treat that as a goal. Yeah. And what are the different means to get there?
Yeah, that makes me think of kind of my own perception of the holidays. And like you were saying, like, the stories that we create, like my intention is good. I always want to get gifts for the people I care about because I want to make them happy. And, I have it in my head. If I spend more money, it means I care about them more. But that's,
Totally. Yeah. Well, and usually going back to our beginning of the conversation about traditions are there to serve that kind of like this idea of like valuing each other, making something more concrete. But at the same time, traditions are there to serve people, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you feel drained, exhausted, you feel all this pressure, it's kind of, well, maybe it's a sign that some of those traditions need to be reevaluated, revisited,
switch it up.
Yeah. But keep the spirit of it. Keep the kind of the special elements that you're talking about.
For sure. And how can we kind of work towards shifting? I mean, like you said, that traditions can change. How can we shift the focus away from spending and towards connection, especially in, friend groups or families where gifts are kind of a big deal?
It can be a really hard conversation to start with the family. But I think it's like when I think about the family, there is no one person who owns that process of like people connecting.
Yeah.
So starting a conversation and kind of like, hey, that's what I've been thinking about. That's what's been on my mind. And inviting people to share the responsibility of shifting that focus to something else can be a way to do it. Because again, like it's an impossible job for one person. But if you invite others, again, like, and it can be in any, like it can be family, it can be like a work event with the team that you work the most, like getting together and kind of, well, how do we want to spend this season together? How do we want to celebrate?
And that in and of itself, figuring that out together, that's a great way to connect.
Well, and it's a sign that you care, that you're thinking about them.
Yeah.
That's again, like a gift is usually what like, it's a sign that someone cares about you, that they're thinking about you, they want to connect. So if you start this conversation, well, you're important people in my life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, again, family, coworkers, people you learned together in school, doesn't matter what the context is like. But if you start that conversation, it tells people like, oh, this person is actually, they care, they want to do it.
So, I mean, money, it's definitely, there's a limit to it around the holidays, but time is also one of the things that we don't have an infinite amount of. And, I think for a lot of people, there is that pressure to say yes to everything around this time of year, whether that's family dinners or New Year's parties or whatever that may be. So how do you recommend people kind of protect their time and energy during the holidays?
I think with any kind of boundaries, the hardest shift for people to have is to shift from like what others are doing or expecting of me and kind of like what's important to me. What do I want to? Because if I'm honest, like if only other people can just like know what I want, know what I'm thinking, know all the stressors I'm going through, life would be so much easier.
It would, yeah.
But unfortunately, people cannot do that for me. So that's what it goes back to kind of like, so what's important to me?
Yeah.
How can I be mindful of the limited time that I have? Ask myself, like, what's important for me this season? I think sometimes it's helpful to maybe kind of think of your time as something more concrete. It's like, well, your time, your calendar is like a plate at a buffet. The more you put on that plate, the less you will enjoy the food that you have.
Yeah.
But also like be mindful that it has a limit. At some point, things will start falling off that plate. I mean, maybe that's what you want, or maybe you want to have a different kind of experience of that buffet. So treat your calendar as something limited, as something tangible.
For sure.
I know it can be about like blocking off that time. For others, also important to include yourself in that list of people who need something. Like block off some time for you to breathe, to rest. Doesn't matter how extroverted or introverted you are. I think it's important just to have a bit of time to slow down too. So
for sure.
Treat that calendar, treat that time as something very tangible and limited, and come up with a metaphor that works for you. That like that's the plate, and I have too much on my plate. Or use your actual physical calendar in your phone as a block off time, and then at some point you'll run out of space on your calendar, and that's a good sign that maybe you have too much.
Yeah, and I like the idea of like actually putting rest in your calendar, like whether that's, a workout, a time alone, whatever that looks like. If it's actually in your calendar, I think you're more apt to commit to that.
Yeah. Well, and it's like that rest is what makes that time with others actually more meaningful and more fun. Like even like actually we're talking about exercise, like it doesn't matter how much you love going to the gym. It's good to be there, but then the time away, the rest, that's what actually allows you to go back to the gym and do more, be more fit, add more weight.
And I think with all these boundaries, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a certain amount of just self-acceptance that comes with it, because you have to be okay with the outcome at some point. Like you can set these boundaries like, sorry, friend, I'm not going to come to this event. They might be disappointed, but you have to be okay that it was the right decision for yourself.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, accepting at the end of the day, those boundaries are connected to the values that we have.
Yeah.
And it's not about choosing between good and bad values. It's like you're choosing among like 10 different good values. And at some point, it's just like they have to choose.
Yeah. Something that comes up definitely with couples is around the holidays is merging traditions. As we grow up with our own families, traditions are built and they can become really meaningful. But if you get together with another person, they come in with their own set of traditions that are meaningful to them. So that can be tricky. What advice do you have for couples navigating those different expectations?
Yeah, it is really tricky, and it comes with all the things that we talked about. All those traditions are wrapped into values, traditions, nostalgia, memories, like a lot of things. So I think one important piece is like maybe even reframing things from we're merging something to like we're creating something new. Okay. And treat it not as a combination of two people, but like it's a brand new thing. Yeah. And treating this not as a competition, but like that's an experiment. You're trying something new. You're putting two different sets of traditions together. Yeah. And being curious about each other, because it's important maybe even to set to ask those questions. What's important to you? What do you want to kind of keep? What do I want to keep as a person too? And what do we want to create together? Because not everything needs to be shared and the same.
Yeah.
They can be like a piece of like we in that tradition, like we want to do this together. And they can be things that all the partners in the relationship can do on their own as well. So it's totally fine to have some traditions that are just your own. Do things away from your partner. That's also totally healthy and normal. That's why it's kind of, you're not merging, you're creating something.
For sure. Yeah. I like that perspective a lot. And then I'm sure that, you know, extended families play a part there as well with couples kind of starting their new tradition. You know, we've got two other sets. We have other sets of families that are going to have their, you know, the way that they see the holiday turning out.
Sure. Yeah, old expectations.
Exactly. So how do you suggest navigating those things? I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's everything you've been saying. Like it's communicating, right?
Well, it's almost like we're taking it to the next level of complexity. It starts with one person and like identifying what's important to you, and then we move to the couple, and then they kind of like the relationship, and they identify like what's important to them together, separate, and then that we're moving to the next level of all the different extended family members. And it's, I think when it comes to like a relationship versus old expectations from the extended family, I think it's probably like people treating like being a team. Setting those expectations and setting boundaries and navigating traditions. It's a team sport, and the better people can be on the same page and present as a united front, the easier it will be. So that's one other piece of that puzzle.
How do we go about determining when to be flexible or more rigid with our boundaries? Like what questions do we ask ourselves? Because that is going to come up a lot. Like there's going to be times where you can't just say, this is my boundary, that's it. You have to, like I said, be a bit more flexible. So how does that work?
Well, and it's a never-ending process. All of those boundaries, they will change. Right. I think the exact question that you asked is the question that needs to be asked by every single person based on their context and what's going on in their life. So what works for them this year might not work for them next year. A more rigid boundary with family when things are going well is a fair thing, but maybe sometime in the future, people are, I don't know, like sick, other things might be going on, and people need to be more flexible with it. It's just like being mindful that your boundaries are yours and they can change and morph, and that's totally okay. That's normal, and it goes back to like, so what's okay for you this season? What's not okay for you this season?
And figuring that out. Yeah. So when I think about the holidays, when I think about Christmas time, it's definitely like the experience of children, I think, is a big part of it. The magic of Christmas and whatnot. If parents are, you know, if they have to set some new boundaries with extended family, whether that's with the amount of money they can spend, how can they explain that to kids without taking away from the specialness of the holidays?
I find that kids usually respond more to the tone and how the conversation is held versus all the details.
Okay.
So if parents, for example, present a new change, a new boundary, is just, well, that's just what's happening, being kind and clear and consistent, that's what kids need. Some kids will push more, some kids will push less. That's just inevitable depending on what kind of kid you have. But the tone of voice, how the conversation is held, is way more important than the details and all the facts and all the kind of like why and kind of like, so that's what's going on.
If the parents approach it really calmly and
Sure. Okay. Yeah. When it's not any different than when my 3-year-old doesn't want to eat broccoli. It's kind of, well, that's on your table. So
that's what's for dinner.
Yeah, that's what's for dinner. My job is to set it there. And he can push more or less, all the things. But the more grounded and clear and consistent I can be, the better he'll react.
Does that have a little to do with modeling? So it's like they're seeing how you're reacting to a situation, so they're kind of going to model that back. What that is?
Well, it can be a combination of that. I feel like some of it is just like the temperament.
Yeah. If
I'm honest, like with my kid, it's like he just likes to push boundaries more than...
Right. Yeah.
Maybe he's after me. Maybe not. There is an element of like temperament and who the kid is. There's definitely like how they see others respond to those boundaries, how they see adults set those boundaries, and also kind of like the history of like how do people set those boundaries in all the other settings?
Okay.
So before the holiday starts, there's a boundary of food. There's a boundary of what time they need to be at home when they go out. There is a boundary of when and how they do their homework for school. So all those boundaries and how those boundaries are set and handled, they will shape the response and those conversations about holidays.
So it really, that's something that can be practiced all through the year.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone, what would you say to a client who's afraid that setting these boundaries might ruin the holidays for them?
I think the main thing is the boundaries don't ruin holidays, they actually rescue holidays. What's the saying, good fences make good neighbors?
Yeah.
So being clear and consistent actually helps the holidays to be better. Goes back to this thing of guilt will come, it's inevitable, but guilt fades away, but resentment will linger. If you do something when you actually want to say no, actually will come back. We'll come back during the season, we'll come back after the season is over.
Right.
So those boundaries always come with cost. So be mindful of what kind of cost you want to pay.
That you're okay with. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're okay with.
Sure.
That's the piece. So boundaries don't ruin holidays. Depending on the situation and the life circumstances and the family, maybe there will be a lot of pressure, a lot of guilt. And that happens too. Even in those situations, I usually think that resentment that will still be bigger than all the pressure and the guilt that people experience.
Right.
Yeah, boundaries, they do not ruin holidays. They rescue the holidays and maybe even the whole year.
And Denis, what's one boundary that you think more people should consider setting during the holidays for their own peace of mind?
I think taking some time for themselves. I think rest is not laziness. Rest it's fuel that helps you do more. So deciding on do you need an hour? Do you need a day? Decide on what will be good enough rest this season and treat yourself as one of the people on that list who need care and attention.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Denis, and I hope you can take some time for yourself during the holidays.
Thank you. Yeah.
You've been listening to Living Fully, a Calgary Counseling Center podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This episode was produced by Nick Here, Louisa Campos, Manuel Montano, Jenna Forbes, and by me, Catherine Hertig. A special thanks to Denis Shushkin. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe. We're available in your favorite podcast app. Living Fully is a production of Calgary Counseling Center and recorded in Calgary on Treaty 7 territory. Living Fully podcast is not a substitute or alternative for professional care or treatment. Calgary Counseling Center and Counseling Alberta provide effective counseling to anyone in Alberta with no waitlist and no financial barriers. Find us online at calgarycounseling.com and counselingalberta.com. For help across Canada and the United States, call 211. If you are outside of Canada and the US, seek help from your general medical practitioner.